One podcast to rule them all. One greenhouse to find them. One tree to bring them all, and in the food forest bind them. In the land of Florida, where the villages lie.
And welcome to the Obsessed with Plants podcast. I'm David. I'm obsessed with plants. Today, as you can tell, I'm a hobbit with my co-host here.
My name is Chris. I go by Permaculture FX Online. I might be Lord Elrond today. And for those of you that have been following, I convinced David to do the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth episode.
Yeah, this was his idea. And then I was like, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to go all in. And so we'd already decided that I was going to be a hobbit, you were going to be an elf. And so, yeah, that's where we got.
It may have taken a little help from his wife to convince him to be able to do it, but it was like 4 or 5 hours of setup to get here, but I think it worked. And David, you are in fact a very small hobbit
small.
right now. You are very, very small. So topic today that we're going to cover is if a Middle-earth or a Hobbiton food forest was designed, what would it look like in Florida? Now, practically, David and I both know, because we're avid Lord of the Rings fans, that Tolkien was living in England and Wales and in Scotland. So he's going to be living in USDA zones like 3 through 8. Now, the challenge is when Peter Jackson did the movies, they're filming in mostly New Zealand and in Australia.
And so we're talking basically 9B with an occasional twist. They do get cold because of the mountains.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a factor to consider, but 99% of the time, but the same with us, we get those cold snaps once or twice a year. So if you're looking at the movie fans, you're looking at a very similar climate to what we deal with.
Right.
But we're also going to sprinkle in that original northern climate zones because you got to share love with the northern climates.
Yeah. And honestly, that is what Tolkien was creating his world in, is it was very reminiscent to that landscape. I have this really nerdy book for those that are also nerdy. It's The Plants of Middle-earth, Botany and Subcreation by Dina Hazel. Phenomenal book because it gets into all of the plants that Tolkien actually mentions in the lore and in the histories of Middle-earth, gives a little description for them and how they're used with great pictures, and even some of the ones that were fake plants that he didn't actually exist. He gets into where he created them from. So
such a cool book.
What we're kind of doing is going, okay, if Middle-earth existed in Florida and we wanted to create that fantasy wonder style garden, how would we design it as Middle-earth Lord of the Ringsy fans to create that special wonder place?
And even if you aren't a huge Lord of the Rings fan, it's still it's a vibe. It's all about the coziness, your meadows with your wildflowers and all those things, with your chickens, your sheep, in my case very large sheep, but
Yeah. And I think too, there's going to be people that listen to this are like, I don't really get the Lord of the Rings. I'm watching this because y'all think it's funny, but as far as application goes, think about a themed food forest. It doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings. It could be fairies and gnomes, sure, but you could do a women's garden. You could do a bamboo food forest. You can do a tea garden. You could do an all black light responsive garden where all the plants glow at night under the black light, like the Avatar movies. So those themed forests and those themed gardens can then be beneficial on a lot of different levels, both in the homestead or the farm, but also even from a business perspective, I think. I'm going to take a sip here.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely worked with people before that were focusing on having, color coordinated gardens, areas that are welcoming to their clients and that sort of thing. And so you can easily design those for yourself. And in this case, we both love that cozy feeling of, Lord of the Rings. And so why not include that in our environment as well?
Absolutely. And if you think about it, a lot of businesses or homes do this anyway. They do it with a theme of a color, a color spectrum. So they're going to do blues and whites and all of their flowers to coordinate with what is in the house. I've designed gardens for wedding venues before, and everything is white, and a pale blue was the branding of what they were doing. So for us, we're just being nerdy in the areas that we love and that we enjoy, and gonna kind of nerd out on this for, I mean, a little while.
Hopefully.
Quite a while, hopefully. So the way that we're gonna tackle this is, if you've ever done a permaculture design course or read into food forest, there's a lot of talk about the 7 layers of a food forest, or the 4 layers of a food forest. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 7 layers of a food forest and we're going to make it Tolkien style. So essentially we'll take like the top story layer, the big overstory tree, and say, okay, here's what maybe Tolkien would have used, or what he did use in the actual lore, but here's what would work for us here in Florida in our Middle Earth themed garden. So you can translate this however you want to. For us, we're nerding out and going to live in Rivendell and in the Shire. You're going to be in the Shire. I'm sticking in Rivendell with my pointy little ears, and kind of going to nerd out on this. So this is an encouragement, I feel like, for you to be able to feel the freedom to be creative, you know, and to enjoy the food forest journey a little bit, you know?
Yep.
So the other thing I was going to say is, this can help with food forest burnout a lot. Like, I don't know about y'all, and David, maybe you can speak to this.
Yeah.
Food forest burnout is real. You just get tired, you get exhausted. And this is kind of a like change in pace, I feel like.
And and especially like a lot of, our Florida friends and family will know, like this year we had all that cold and then the drought. And then, if you get busy and you just look at your garden and it's like, everything just looks brown, or it's not growing as well, or I lost something. It can be a lot. And so it ways of making it fun and exciting again. So bringing in your own hobbies, whether that's, movies, or whether that's, books or anything like that, you can add ways that make it thematical, that kind of spark other interests and just kind of combine the ways. And that's kind of why we wanted to touch on this today. So
awesome. So let's go ahead and dive in.
You want me to go first, or want you?
Well, let's tackle story by story, like layer by layer.
Okay.
So let's do the top story first. Okay. So when we look at Tolkien's lore, the top story, or those larger trees, because he's in England, is probably going to be something along the lines of a grandfather red oak, a white oak, maybe a maple tree, a white maple tree. So very, very simple. Hawthorn tree was very common in those days, especially for like protection. The rowan tree. Now we don't grow really much of those. White oak and red oak don't really work here. So probably our closest correlation to like a red oak or a white oak would be a live oak. But I think we can be a little more creative than just a plain old live oak. So when you look at your top story, what was your pick for the top story on your list?
When prepping these, we were trying to make sure we had different answers, but we didn't want to tell each other. And I bragged about not picking something that he would pick. So we'll see how that goes. So I went with kind of a 2 for each, mainly because it was like a little bit more traditional, but also very much what the movies did. And so my first pick was like Shumard oak. You don't see a lot of those, but they are native to Florida. Yeah. And you're talking about big leaves. You get a little splash of color when they do fall, although we're in the Florida.
Yeah,
so
you get that red hue in the fall sometimes.
And then also slash pines, because in the movie, you'd have those big pine trees with all the branches. So you'd have the big canopy trees, the big slash pines, but you also have to go with some kind of oak because, well, the big oaks in the Shire were ones that Bilbo planted from his journeys, the ones he found.
Oh, nice.
It's supposed to be like an acorn.
Yeah, that's good. So mine were different, actually. So I was actually thinking, okay, on this one, I'm not going to do the original party tree over top of Hobbiton. I want it because that got cut down in the books after Saruman and Grima Wormtongue, ravaged the Shire. We're getting really nerdy here. So they replanted the tree. Samwise Gamgee replanted the tree using one of the Malorn seeds over top of the bag end. And so I was thinking, okay, what would like the trunk of a Malorn be? So I was like, I'm thinking like rainbow eucalyptus, because you get those weird funky colors, the really smooth bark. The other one I was thinking, just because it's so crazy and like flamboyant, is Royal Poinciana. Now I know that's only going to be zone 10, 11, 12, but Royal Poinciana with the way those branches like spread out, I thought would be kind of cool, actually. So those are our top story
good splash of color
picks.
too.
So layer number 2 is the understory trees. So we've got our really tall 30, 40 foot trees. Now we're designing the next layer down.
Something that's like maximum 15
15,
feet.
yeah, 12, 15,
Absolutely
17
max.
feet, somewhere in there. So now in Tolkien's world, this would have been like apple or pear or pawpaw, maybe persimmon, would have been some of the colder climate things that they would be eating, in his lore. But in the Florida climate, most people are not doing pawpaw. They probably shouldn't be doing apple and
you
pear
could do
for the
native
most
pawpaw,
part.
Not that it's going to fruit very much, but
Not very good.
it doesn't taste very good either.
Yeah,
So.
not good. So if they're going to be doing those understory trees, what were your picks for the understory trees?
Well, I was trying to think of like berries because, you gotta walk around your meadows and pick berries and just, start, absolutely devouring them. So I started with cherry of the Rio Grande.
Oh yeah.
So you got your little red berries and kind of hedgy. You can hedge them a little bit, and then dwarf everberry and mulberry.
And it has the word dwarf in it, and so it's the pun on the names. So I feel that one.
Sir,
I
I'm a
feel that
halfling,
one.
Not a dwarf.
Yeah. So I was thinking loquat tree because they're very evergreen, and they do get a little bit of the fruiting going on. I was doing a lot of trees that are like a play on the names. So I did Mystic Red mulberry and then gelato mulberry. I know the hobbits probably weren't making gelato, but they're foodies. And I just feel like if you're going to be a foodie in Florida, you've got to have gelato or ice cream. So I was like, I think we're going to do the gelato mulberry and the Mystic Red were my two picks on the those trees. Loquat would be fun because you get like the green tea, from the leaves. You get the fruit, but I agree with you. Dwarf everbearing mulberry, that was a good pick because the word dwarf is in there, so that's a good one. So layer number 3 is our shrub layer. So in England, and this brings me back to my Michigan days. So those of you that know me know that I grew up in Michigan. I spent most of my young adult life in Kansas City. And so we were big fans of like Hass-caps, which are kind of like an elongated blueberry, gooseberries, like true gooseberries, not Cape Cod gooseberries that are a nightshade, but gooseberries are like super tart, yummy, very thorny, grow in the shade. Currants, those would be a lot of the ones that would be in the shrub layer. As far as like Tolkien's concerned, rose bushes, rosy cotton, would be our rose reference. So for you, what would your shrub layer choices be?
Well, I was trying not to pick something that you would go with, so I have a couple different ones.
Nice.
Well, for one, I was thinking like you got to do teas, so I was thinking like a chamomile tea. What was that one you were telling me about yesterday?
Oh yeah,
it was a warm.
Warm friendly chamomile called Dyer's Chamomile. I got my seeds from Mama G, Melissa Goulterman at Mama G Farms. So she does sell the seeds. And I've been using that one this year and it's huge. Like you can see that, but the flowers on them are massive compared to the little teeny tiny chamomile flowers. They're just really big. And so far, it's 1st of June, and mine are still blooming like crazy for another few weeks, I think. So that's a good one.
And then I also wanted to do, because I did two for a lot of these. Sorry, we were the wrong ones. Then you got like toilet paper plant for like the good spikes.
Yep, toilet paper plant.
If you didn't want to do toilet paper plant, you could also do blue salvia because that'd be the same flower too.
Yeah, and I like how you chose the toilet paper plant, the blue spur, because those flower spikes look a lot like the salvias that you would have seen in the movies, in the Hobbit movie and the Fellowship of the Ring, and obviously looking like a lobelia. It's important to have lobelia saxifol baggins, in there. So that was a cool choice. So what were yours again? Blue spur, toilet paper plant, and what was the other one?
The blue salvia, because they look the same.
Yeah,
but they're
and Dyer's chamomile.
And then the
Dyer's chamomile. Yep. Nice. So mine, I actually wrote down the Savannah cherry. So it's very similar to your recommendation on the cherry of the Rio Grande. And then because I want to do like hobbity names, I wanted the farthing blueberry. So the South Farthing. Get it? Y'all, that's so great. Like, how great.
You didn't tell me we were going this detailed.
1 point for Credler.
I'm sitting here like trying to just pick generic plants. He's sitting here picking a specific one. This is not fair.
I almost started the podcast by like speaking Elvish or greeting you Megovanen, sweet-eyed Melon. Is that too much?
I really hope that there's not a single person who's seen Lord of the Rings who watches this.
If anybody has played,
it's gonna be funny if there's not a single Tolkien fan in this.
If anybody's played Lord of the Rings online, the old version from like the early 2000s, they're like Megavan and like all the NPCs. Sorry, I just completely like made myself
Bunny
ridiculous.
trails here.
Bunny trails. So my first one was South Farthing, or the Farthing blueberry, which is not self-pollinating. So technically you would need to do something like emerald or Biloxi or Snow Crisp to go along with the Farthing blueberry. But I did want that.
For those other ones that aren't, you still get better pollination anyways with that cross-pollination.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And blueberries, in my opinion, they're not incredible in Florida. I feel like they're good. They're going to be better in the pine hammocks. So like when you're doing the slash pine, as your top story tree, blueberry would be an excellent choice, like underneath of that. But for a lot of people in Florida, like soil is very alkaline. So blueberries are better done in the pot. Otherwise, if you're not growing them in a pot, very large pot, like wine barrel size, you're going to have to be amending your soil with something acidic like elemental sulfur or something a couple times a year, or using hollytone to keep that soil acidity.
But our sands just don't hold it regardless without the constant vigoration. So if you don't have a natural way of adding that in, just get big decorative pots. You have your trees here, and then you have your shrubs, and then you can have some decorative stuff mixed in. And it ain't that big a deal as long as you're getting them watered. I'd just do them like that. It's the easiest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. So let's talk about layer number 4. This is the herbaceous layer. So layer number 1 was our top story. 2 is our understory. 3 is our shrub layer.
Yep.
So on our herbaceous layer, this is the much lower to the ground. So we're thinking like about 1 foot, 2 foot, 2.5 feet tall, maybe a little bit taller. You can go 3 feet on these, but more herbaceous style plants. So in Tolkien's world, so this would have been things like strawberries or lingonberries were very common, like in Scandinavia, to do like the lingonberry preserves over top of like reindeer meatballs or whatever was really common for them. Cranberries were very, very common. The ground cover raspberries or alpine strawberries, that would have been the most common as far as Tolkien's lore, but we're not really doing a lot of strawberries, specifically perennially. We're not doing strawberries as a perennial in Florida. We're definitely not doing lingonberries, but
you can, but you really have to treat it more as like, oh, you're planting that during the winter, like you would like a decorative flower from like a Home Depot or a Lowe's. Yeah. Where you plant it and you're there to enjoy it for like 3 or 4 weeks. And then after that, it's, kind of done. If you're willing to put in the work for it, it's fine. But I'm too lazy for that.
I am too. Strawberries are a lot of work here in Florida.
Yeah. They get blight.
They're a lot. So what's your herbaceous layer ones? What did you choose?
I guess my chamomile should have been in this one.
That's right.
And then I did Mexican sunflower, but not the big one, the rotundifolia, which is more, small.
Oh, yeah, the
just
orange
for that splash
one,
of color, a
3
little bit
feet
of chop
tall.
and drop. Yeah, it's a little bit on the high side, but
that's a really good one, especially because when I'm thinking about the Peter Jackson movies, you see a lot of like cosmos and sulfur cosmos and zinnias that they planted because they wanted those annuals really fast. So that does make a lot of sense on that layer. Yeah, that's good. So is that the only one you had, or do you have multiple?
Yeah, because the chamomile was the same mindset, but I had them in the wrong order. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So my herbaceous layer, I did 2 of them. I did one as the Darrows because I like the Darrows in the Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth. So Darrow's blueberry. And then I had to do philodendron elven magic because we're going with I know that face. I had to have elven magic. So we have the elven magic philodendron, which was kind of a North Florida, Alabama cultivar, but it can be grown herbaceously down here in Central Florida. You're judging me so hardcore, but I'm so excited about this. Like I want all the names.
Just the puns. You didn't tell me we were doing puns.
I don't. When I was in Kansas City, I had this like what do you call it? A hosta and fern garden, and I had so many just hostas that only were for the names. Like I had guacamole because I had the obsession with avocados, and I had elven fire, I had elven magic, elven ears. I had all these like elven names for my hosta garden, things that make gardeners.
I mean, if you're willing to walk around the neighborhood in full elven garb, then I feel like you're willing.
I did have to do that today, by the way. So just so y'all know, I needed some of those little cuties and tangerines. So I had to walk to my neighbors, and she was like, "Oh wow," and I was like, "Filming a podcast," and she's like,
It was
Okay.
beautiful. Watching him just walk into the distance is beautiful.
Oh, no shame. No shame. Okay, that's our layer 4 is herbaceous layer. Layer number 5 are root crops. And I mean, the obvious one for Tolkien is potatoes. Taters, precious. So it's, and we're not doing a lot of potatoes in Florida. We can, obviously the sweet potatoes can be
They need
easier,
the cold and the humidity is a little too much.
Yeah,
for potatoes.
agreed.
But
What else can we do?
But we're in the South, so like, as soon as you get to the equator, the amount of starch root crops, honestly, there's not really a whole lot of diversity up north when you compare to you've got So my choice, sweet potatoes. And my personal favorite, just for the bad Florida soils, Tynung 64. It's a great choice.
And people can get that if they need it at Cody Cove Nursery.
that's where I got
Is
mine.
the best place to get
There's
it.
a couple other people that have them, but yeah, Cody Cove's been the most reliable.
And I think he's the one that introduced that cultivar to Florida,
Yeah.
isn't he? Yeah. Josh Jameson. Absolutely brilliant dude. I mean, well worth the visit if
Pretty
you go
much
to Cody
everything he
Cove.
does is like landrace stuff where he's selecting out specifically for Florida soils. That's just why I like that. There's a few Japanese varieties that are like purple that do pretty good too.
Yep.
And then if you want to go like true yams, so Dioscorea elata, I think is the one that I like. Just because you get that big meaty root tuber that would feed you for days.
Yeah, that makes sense. And mine, I did African potato mint. So it grows kind of as a ground cover. It's very nutty. It's kind of got this like water chestnut meets a potato. I like it in like potatoes au gratin style is how I prepare mine when I cook it.
And honestly, they're a good ground cover too.
Really good ground cover. Cassava is another one, but that one is a little bit harder for some people because they wait too long to harvest it and it gets very fibrous, very stringy. You have to cook it forever in order to get all of the cyanides out of it.
You really do need to set an alarm or something. Like this many days out, you need to be harvesting it.
What I ended up doing on my phone is I just tell Siri to remind me in X amount of weeks because I can never remember when to harvest my dang cassava. It's so frustrating. I think I went for 3 years before I actually tried my first stupid cassava because I kept waiting too long. I'm like, I literally tried to use an axe on one because I couldn't get it open.
The cycle, because you just propagate them via cuttings and you just take the cutting and jam it in the ground and that's where it grows all the like tubers out. And for me, my cycle has been, I grow it. I forgot about it. I cut it. I stick it in the ground to reset it. I forgot about it again.
Yep. It's so
I don't think I've ever
frustrating.
actually harvested the roots because I keep forgetting.
So, but it does make a really good like potato fry. It's a very nutty, it's almost like carnival fries to me. Like it's good.
Yeah, because you can get them in the supermarket now, like frozen, pretty reliably.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, they're not as good in the supermarket, but
Yep.
if you just want to try it, it's pretty easy.
It's an easy one. And then I think for mine as a Florida native that actually grows as a weed, Kingsfoil, it's a weed. I would say Florida betony because Florida betony gets that nice little tuber. It's got worms in its tubes. And so I like the little tubers because you can pickle them. You can eat them fresh, dip them in a little bit of salt. I think they're really yummy. And it literally is a weed. I mean, it's not going to be as healing as Kingsfoil, but it is very, very yummy.
Kingsfoil, but
But it's still pretty dang good. So those are some pretty good recommendations for our potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. So layer number 5, that was it. So layer number 6 is ground covers.
Yep.
This is a fun one because Tolkien gets into this one really hardcore. So he does a lot of nasturtiums, zinnias, salvia, sage, thyme. When you look at the set design that they did for Hobbiton, it's a lot of ground covers, a lot of spreaders. So this is a really fun one for folks to get super nerdy, super creative.
Do a lot of the northern ones here too, because they do kind of have a little bit of an overlap.
Yeah, they do. And things we can do the Cosmos or Zinnia. We just got to plant a little bit, wait a month, plant a little bit, wait a month. They don't last for like 8 months like they do in northern climate. So what are your ground covers and spreaders? What are your favorites?
Obviously, I had to go with a type of pumpkin first because in the movies you see the hobbits carrying around these absolutely massive pumpkins. So
that's a good
Seminole
idea.
pumpkins. Because they come in all shapes and sizes. You really just have to find, it's more of a category at this point rather than, so some are like gourd shaped, some are huge pumpkins. So we just find who you're buying from and you can basically.
Can I have a nerdy introduction?
You can have a nerdy
because you did say
you can have a nerdy.
You got to pay attention who you're buying from. So Kelly and Ryan from Seed the Stars.
Yep.
I want to say they have a Bull Roar pumpkin, which Bull Roar is a place in Middle Earth. It's also one of the server names in Lord of the Rings Online. Not that I play Lord of the Rings Online still after like 15 years, but it is one of the server names is Bull Roar. So you could do the Bull Roar pumpkin. And mate, is that the one that they're growing? Bull something, Bulldog, so. Bull Roar. We're going to go with Bull Roar.
It's pretty big.
All right. So that's a good one, pumpkins.
And then Beijing grass. Not native. But it is herbaceous. You can use it for teas, a little bit of respiratory, loosen it up. And in the shade, it will take over in the shade.
That's a good one.
But if you don't have anything that's growing under oak trees, that Beijing grass, and it has cute little blue flowers. Doesn't flower very often, but it does kind of look like salvias a little bit. So just keeping that.
That's good. That is really good. You got any more on that one?
No, that's the two I thought of.
Okay, this one I nerded out on. I
figured you were gonna.
I did a few more on this one. So on this one, my first one is we actually in Florida we call it swamp hobbit. It's the Florida anise, so it grows in wet soils, has like red flowers. So I think swamp hobbit because it is a hobbit. That one's got to be in there. Number 2 for me was the native fairy hibiscus. So it's a red hibiscus that kind of hangs downward. It's only going to be about like a dime size flower, but it's fairly long blooming. It does spread a little bit. Hardy like 9B to 11. I have grown it in 9A, but sometimes it does freeze out. I have 4. And then my third one, pretty much lobelia, any of them, because lobelia, Saxifol baggins in the movies and in the books. In Florida, we have 13 different varieties of lobelia, including cardinal flower, which is fun. And so a lot of the nurseries have those native, lobelias that you can go for. And then my last one is actually called, do I have 2? I have 2. Okay, I have Thelopteres elrondi because we have to do Elrond. So we have Thelopteres elrondii, which is actually a maidenhair fern that was named after Lord Elrond in Lord of the Rings because the gentleman who found it from like southern Alabama, North Florida, was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. So he did name it Elrondi or Elrondii. And then I did find out the last couple weeks, bro, get this. There is a Rivendell white clover.
Of course there is. Of course there is.
Like, how great is that? I have not grown it. In my little bit of research about this, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It's in the white Dutch clover family. So it should do really well here theoretically because we can do like a white clover, a Durana clover, Dutch clover. So the Rivendell is in the same vein as the Dutch clover or Durana. Mm-hmm. So I think it would do really well. That's now officially on my shopping list. So there you go. So that's mine. So that is that's the end of the 6th layer.
Yep. And
we have one more layer.
Vines.
So vining layer. Nope. So vining layer, this in food forests, they often grow up the trunk of the trees into the branches of the understory. It can be grown, along fences. You can do vines as a ground cover.
Pretty much anything you don't mind supporting.
Oh, totally. Now in the books and in the movies, we do see like a lot of clematis that's growing up and over some of the hobbit houses. We see in the distance some of the hardy kiwi. We see Schisandra berry, which all of those are very cold climate, up into zone 4. The Schisandra berry, hardy kiwi especially. So Tolkien's kind of work in that area is very, very different than what we're going to be able to grow here. So when you thought about your vining ones, what were some of your choices for vines in this Middle Earth food forest?
Honestly, I went with a native, Florida native coral honeysuckle. They make cute little flowers, good for hummingbirds and butterflies especially. Not enough of that around. You'll see it occasionally, but it's one of those that's like it's native, but it's not doing well spreading, so it's a good one to bring in. And then you could do just passion fruit too.
Oh, of course. And those flowers are so tropical and mythical, kind of looking. I think the ones that I did, one of them I wanted a name that sounded more like Elvish, like either Quenya or Sindarin, so I went with one called Gynostemma, which to me, it just sounded so great. So I did Gynostemma as one of my choices. So this is a vining plant, really, really good for, it's almost like the ginseng of Florida, I guess you could say. So it's good for stress, for energy levels, for building up that internal fire kind of thing. good immune system and cancer fighter, immune system booster and cancer fighter. Muscadine grapes, because I feel like that's just so lush and so rich. Southern Home just feels a little bit more hobbity to me.
And there's a lot of new, like, not new varieties, but like becoming more popular that are.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot more varieties nowadays, which is good.
Yeah. I did try a new one that I got from foodforestnursery.com. That was the noble variety. And that one has done well for me. And so is Carlos was another one that did well. The other two that I was thinking of were more like Flowers Wonder. And I was looking at some pictures of the Shire. And when I was looking at it, the big sky like always sticks out to me, you know, when they're traveling. And so I was thinking the blue sky vine, sometimes it's called Bengal clock vine, the Thunderbergia grandiflora. And then the other one is a native to Florida, the blue sky, but it's looks similar to a morning glory, very small blue sky. And so that one is more 9B to like zone 11, but it's on the endangered list. So I think it's a really good one to be planting. I did see they have it at Green Isle Gardens in Groveland.
Such an awesome place.
But it's very, very nice. We have some friends, Chris and Christy with Wild Garden Co. They are growing it and they're in the Eustis, Umatilla kind of area. And theirs is doing great. And that's like 9A area. So I think that's a really easy one. Well, did you have any more that popped into your head as we were kind of going through, or does that about sum it up, Mr. Frodo?
I mean, you kind of hit up more than I was. You went way more in depth than you made it sound. He was just like,
I'm a bigger nerd.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but like I'm always doing Lord of the Rings stuff, and then he's like, oh yeah, just come up with a few good plants, and then I'm like, okay, cool.
They were great.
And then he just comes in with every single plant. Every single one is a name.
I cheated. I have a book. No, I didn't cheat. There's no Florida ones in there. I will say that. That's too funny.
I was trying to do native.
Now,
Florida.
again, you know, for people listening, it doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings.
No,
you know, our goal with this is not to convince you.
You could be doing Asian Zen garden with like bamboos and maple looking plants. Or
totally.
You could be doing, you know, there's so many options.
There's a lot of great themes.
It's just a way to make it fun, interesting, different.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day, like even the one of the people we mentioned in a short the other day was the Ylang Ylang project. And so one of the things that they're passionate about doing is doing sacred plant gardens. And so that's kind of their niche that really nobody else is doing that stuff. They're doing hyssop and sage and olive leaf and all of these plants used in Judaism or Christianity or, you know, the other great religions of the world. They're like selecting these plants that we can grow here. And what a great niche to be in. So I think for me, this brings joy to my heart. But I think for you, think about what brings you joy. Is it color? Is it a theme for women's health, you know, or whatever it is? Because we ain't going to be crushing watermelons with our thighs for Women's Health Month. That is like the trend last month, which is like, yeah, ain't going to happen. But I will tell you how to grow a women's health garden. That's the plug right there.
There you go.
Yeah. So hopefully this was fun for you. It was a lot of fun for us. It was a lot of fun for us.
Great.
So if you would just take a moment, hype it up, do the like, subscribes, it just helps us get the content into the hands of people that need it the most. And if you could just leave a comment for us, tell us if this was something that you enjoyed or something that you would like to see a little less of. This is either going to be our best episode ever or possibly the worst. There's going to be 5 people that watch it. So beloved, if you're one of the 5...
Let us know, because if people love this kind of thing, we'll do more of it. I love this set. This is kind of what I've always wanted to do, and so like being able to talk Chris into doing that, you know, this is like if every time we had this set, I'd be fine doing this every time.
Oh
Maybe
my
not
gosh.
looking up at you all the time because it's getting a little.
Yeah, you are
tiring,
very
but-
small. You are indeed very small. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Later.
Yeah.
Just don't look at me. Look at camera. Camera's fine.
We
Good
both
point.
will be looking at the camera a lot more now. We're
I'm
going to
gonna
have
try-
to be.
No, I was gonna try to look at you a lot.
Okay.
I mean, the imaginary you.
Look
up
at
there.
me. Now look at the camera.
Look at me. Look at the camera.
You're going to have to look at the camera, son. Otherwise, your face is very tiny on the screen.
What's wrong with that? I'm a hobbit.
My face is very huge on the screen.
You're an elf.
My name is Chris, or Lord Elrond, for this issue. And our episode, rather... Oh, let's start over. Sorry.
It's the whole point. We did not spend 4 hours doing this.
Oh, my gosh. I know. Well,
I'm a
somebody
hobbit.
else is sitting here at the table.
I'm a
with us.
hobbit. The viewer.
Yeah, the viewer. Hey, thanks for joining us at the table. Appreciate it.
No. That's too meta. That's
No.
too meta. It's too meta.
Meta?
Normal. Yeah, like breaking the fourth wall.